Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gay Men Going Deeper, a podcast by the Gay Men's Brotherhood that showcases raw and real conversations about personal development, mental health, and sexuality from an unapologetically gay perspective. I'm your host, Michael Diario, and joining me today is the wise and wonderful Matt Lansettle. Today, we're going to be talking about comparing ourselves to others, and we're going to be exploring questions like, who do you compare yourself to? What do you compare exactly? And how have you developed a resilience to the pattern of compare and despair? What we want you, the audience, to get out of today's episode is to understand how comparison affects your self-esteem and then learn to reframe it for your personal development. Now, if you're new here, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, please subscribe. And please do leave us a review, which helps us get into the ears of people who need us. And welcome to the show. All right, so the episode or the title of today's episode is called Compare and Despair, which we've talked about a lot, but we've never actually had a full episode on it. So I think it's important that I explain what this means. This is a very common challenge that we face. I face it personally. I'll be talking about that today. I know Matt does, and I know a lot of you guys out there do as well, especially in this era of Instagram and social media. So I want you to imagine that feeling when you're just kind of scrolling through your feed on Instagram, tapping through stories, scrolling down the feed, and you're looking at someone's post and you're thinking, wow, he's got it all together, right? And there's no shortage of things to compare ourselves to. Some common ones that I see are seeing people out there and about having a wonderful time with their friends, laughing and having a jolly time, and you're comparing your social life or your friendships, maybe your lack of that, with someone who seems to have a lot of that. Another common way is what I call lifestyle. So that's things like money, vacations, someone's beautiful home. Maybe they're always out and about, at Fire Island one weekend and then at a circuit party the next, and then, they're off to Europe on the next month. And you're just like, wow, they have it all. Like they really can do all those wonderful things. Another very common one is body and looks, right? So fitness and, those gym selfies, those sexy naked or half naked selfies, on the beach, and just seeing someone's body and like, wow, they really look really good and I don't. And then another one is in the relationship sense. So if you're someone who's single or just having a hard time, finding love and you want that connection, and you're seeing, couples on there posting all their lovey-dovey reels and selfies and they're all in love, that can be really hard as well, a way to compare. And then finally is in a professional success kind of way. So someone who's maybe out and about creating things in the world that you think you should be doing or you want to be doing, and they're out there doing it, right? So that's just a few of the most common ways that we can compare ourselves. So that is the compare aspect of compare and despair. By the way, this does not have to be on social media or Instagram. It could be anywhere in your life, but this is where I see it especially activated and where it's especially activated in me personally. So it's easy to feel like everyone else has got it all figured out. Everyone else figured out life and they left you behind. You don't, right? That's kind of the despair aspect. So if we lifted the hood on your brain during this kind of mindless scrolling, we'd find a lot of thoughts, a lot of automatic thoughts that are kind of happening without our control, without our permission, as I say. And they're something like this. They have it all. My favorite one, must be nice. Something must be wrong with me. I'm not fill in the blank, hot, smart, sexy, rich, whatever, enough. I'm not enough. It's not some kind of I'm not enough story. He's so much further along than me. I can't keep up. Why can't I have that? My life sucks. I suck. We'd probably find a lot of that. Yeah. Raise of hands. Yeah. Everyone's raising their hand. Yeah. No one's actually here. I'm just making that up. But yeah, I can tell that there's probably a lot of people right now nodding and like, oh yeah, that sounds like me. Okay. So this is the despair part. So that's the despair. But here's the thing with compare and despair. It's not really about them. Unfortunately, it's not about them at all. The despair we feel isn't because of what we're seeing. It's because of what we're making it mean about us specifically. Okay. It's not caused by them. It's caused by your thoughts about them. Now go ahead and play that back and listen to it again because it's really important. It's not caused by them. It's caused by your thoughts about them. If it's caused by them, then that really sucks because we can't control them and they're just going to keep doing it. But if you realize that it's caused by thought that you're having, the good news is the despair is something that you can control. Thoughts are one of the few things that you actually do have control over, right? I don't have control over someone on Instagram posting all their amazing selfies. They're going to do it anyway, but I can control what I do about that, right? So, as a coach, I think that compare and despair is a great opportunity to see what's going on in your brain. And I was telling Matt just before we started today that over the last few months, this has really popped up a lot with my clients in my coaching. So I've been doing a lot of coaching on it. So it's very fresh for me. And so I'm going to kind of put on my coach hat for today's episode a bit more. But I will be telling you guys how I do it in my own way to help you out. So that's what we've got going on for you guys today. And let's get into it. So the first question we have is, who do you find yourself comparing yourself to, and in what ways?
Yeah, thank you. What a beautiful intro.
Thank
It
you.
was so succinct. And I think my takeaway from your intro is that you use the word meaning, what we
Mm-hmm.
make it mean,
Yeah.
right? So we got all these thoughts stirring, and obviously our thoughts are coming from our beliefs. And we might have beliefs around scarcity, around not being enough, not having enough. And that's my flavor. My flavor is inadequacy.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like, am I enough? Am I working hard enough? Am I producing enough? Am I significant enough? These sorts of things. And I've come into this life with a strong purpose to make a difference in the world. And I think one of my greater personality needs is significance. I want to make an impact. I want people to feel changed and inspired by being like around me and being exposed to my work and stuff like that. So I have a tendency to compare myself to people with more significance, who've who are doing their work on a larger scale, impacting more people, these sorts of things. And it's really tied into I'm not working hard enough. And you know my journey, Michael. It's the last few years I've been submitted with depression and my nervous system stuff issues, and I haven't been able to really output the way I was outputting before. And I was like outputting like crazy. Like even before I met you, like I was, 12-hour days, 5 days a week, no breaks, like just pumping out content and just, trying. And it was coming from this place of shame and inadequacy, and I'm not good enough, and I'm not working hard enough, and um, heavy reliance on external validation. And I've been healing this and learning that like I don't need to do this. Just even simply in my business, shifting from a model of like chasing to attracting and like being magnetic in the work that I do. It's like freed me up so much. So, but this still rears its ugly head sometimes. Like when I was on vacation, just got back from like a 5-week holiday, and I was like, everyone's getting ahead of me. You know what I mean? Like this feeling. And I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, chill, like, and I'm learning that like no one's actually getting ahead of me, because when I'm resting, I'm getting ahead. I'm moving still. Like I'm recharging my battery so I can keep going. And before I was like running on fumes, and I was dissociating to get through my work days and things like this. So um yeah, if we're being specific, I would say, and I've noticed like shame come up when I was like thinking of people, and I'm like, I don't want to share this publicly. Like, why would I want to let these people know that I do this or that I feel this way? But like T.S. Gibson is one of them. She has the personal development school. She's like someone that I really look up to. um and like I've like crunched her numbers, I think, like what she earns per probably month, because she said she's got about 5,000 people in her membership's like $70 a month to be part of. So just off of that one thing, her membership alone, she's probably raking in like, I don't know, 12 million a year, something like that. Like it's just absurd, right? And then the holistic psychologist is another one,
Yeah.
and she's like probably 10 times that. She's probably raking in $120,000 or $120 million a year, something like that, just off of her memberships. Um, so those are two. And then I get into this mindset of like, I'm not working hard enough. I'm not doing enough. And I have these moments where I'm like, wow, Matt, like you are doing so much. It's crazy. Like you're so awesome, and you're of service to so many people. And I get emails from people all the time of how like my work is changing their lives and stuff. So I've got to really like root myself back down into, I kind of frame it in these two concepts of like my soul and my ego. My ego compares and my soul compliments.
Mm.
And that's for both myself and towards other people. Like my soul compliments me and is constantly like refilling my bucket and being like, wow, you're amazing. You're doing so well. And then my mind is like, I'm not doing enough. So I find I'm always in this kind of like this tug of war between my ego and my soul. So that's one of them. So that's significance. And that's more in my professional world. And I'm like you, I think you and I have a very similar dharma. Like work is everything. Like 70% of my life is work because like my work is me. It's
Yeah.
my life purpose is my work. And I don't say that from a workaholic place. It's just I'm walking a very like karmic and dharmic path towards like work life is a big part of it, right? So and I love that. I'm very very happy with that, and I'm proud of what I do and the service that I offer to people. um but so then the other piece would be around body still. So I've shared this in many episodes prior. um, and I was heavily reliant on external validation around my body. And the last 4 years, this same type of submission, I was submitted into having injuries. My nervous system couldn't work out. It just was constantly tired, and it was like my system was telling me to rest. And I haven't really had any motivation to go to the gym. It's been almost 5 years now since I've been training, and so my body's totally changed. And um, so like when I there is an element of the visual, like I wish my body would look better, but there's also this thing of like I feel like I'm not strong, like I don't feel like I'm in my power physically, because I've always been super fit. I've played sports growing up. So I think when I see athletic men that are like really in their power, like in their physical power, like it kind of makes me feel like inadequate, and I'm like, oh, I wish that I could be like that. So um and then uh, I kind of have a funny story about this one. So, how much attention someone is getting, because my ego can easily go into, I want the attention, like put the attention on me, right? It's a thing with having, there's a shadow side to having a personality need of significance, right? It's like I want to be significant, but there's also a part of me within that where I don't want to be the center of attention.
Yeah.
And that's more my soul energy. Okay. But my ego energy is like, I want to be the center of attention and I want the attention to be on me. And so it depends on what energy I'm in. But my uncle told me this story like when I was like probably 5 years old, and we were in Victoria. I was visiting him when he lived out there. And we were in some like, I don't know, like city, uh, what do you call those things where people like perform and do different things? Like
A square
like a
carnival.
square, like a city
Yeah.
square,
Yeah.
exactly. And there was some kid that like got pulled in by one of the street performers and like was performing with him. And I was like probably like 5, 6 years old or something. And I turned to my uncle and I was like, that kid thinks he's so special or something like that. And I was so jealous or envious that he got chosen, right? And I didn't.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's definitely something that shows up. Um, yeah, people's level of success. I think I already said that one. Um, and then there's also another element to this as well, because I think we're talking about compare and despair, but I kind of came up with a concept of like compare and repair, because when I do go into compare and despair, I can easily flip and go to compare and repair, where I compare myself to people that I feel like I'm better than them. Again, this is a very egoic thing, and it's like the way the ego tries to repair from maybe the despair or the woundedness that it feels around not being good enough.
Yeah.
And that's usually for me like when I feel like envy or jealousy towards somebody. I think my ego wants to go into this like either like belittling them and like being like, oh, like minimizing them or like that sort of thing as a protector, so I don't have to feel my own inadequacy. And then so then there's a part of me that can go into that compare and repair, which is like, okay, I have to make myself feel better some way, right? um but it's interesting because this used to be a lot more active in me. It's not as active in me anymore. I feel like as I'm developing more self-esteem and creating balance between like the S and the O. I always talk about like the self and the other. And for a lot of my life, I had a little S, like a little sense of self, and a big other. So other was my reference point. And I've done a lot of work on like developing more of like an equal S and O, because I think it's very important to have an equal balance between the two, because we want to be like concerned and caring about what others are doing and what they think about us, but not uh, you know, in lieu of ourselves. So I think as I'm developing a stronger sense of self, with that comes self-confidence, self-esteem, self-worth. And then you don't feel like you need to be pulling people back down into the crab bucket, right? You're like, okay, I'm going to get out of the crab bucket and help people out of the crab bucket. So um, but yeah, it's tough. It's a tough journey, and I think this is a human condition where we're ping ponging between soul and ego. But I think, you know, as we know as Geminis, we're like so dualistic, and it can be so exhausting being like constantly in these two characters. But I think it is truly a human experience thing. But I know that was a bit of a longer share, but I felt like I wanted to just dish it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate that. It's funny that you mentioned, significance, because
Yeah,
when we had first met, I did that with you. When
yeah,
we were first connecting, I looked you up, checked you out, and you had
yeah,
like, in my opinion, as someone who's just starting in this gay world, like the gay coaching world, I was like, oh
yeah,
my God, this guy has been doing it for so long. Like he
yeah,
has it all. He's got the following, he's got the YouTube. And I was just starting at like zero, literally.
yeah, yeah.
So I felt that way with you. It's very interesting.
Oh,
Now, I did not know behind the scenes you were working 12 hours a day and all these things.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, and I'll talk about that in the second
Yeah.
question, because there's so much to like to that. But yeah, we never know what's going on with somebody.
Yeah, and I think it's important what you had said as well about looking around at that this concept of comparing and looking around at other people. It's natural. We are a social species. That's what we do, and I don't think it's fair to say don't compare. Like I don't know
Yeah,
how. I don't know anyone who's successfully just not done it. I
yeah,
think it's important to realize you are going to do it. Just be very mindful and conscious about how you're doing it,
yeah,
because it is part of the human condition. It's not going to go away.
yeah,
So, for example, like if you're going to compare yourself in terms of being further along, if you want to do it that way, like compare yourself to a peer. Like, so if, in my example, I probably shouldn't have been comparing myself to you who had been at it for a lot longer,
yeah,
right? Maybe I should have been comparing myself to someone who is also just starting, right?
yeah,
Also at that same level.
yeah,
Yeah, that's how I would see the comparing in a like one way you can do it. Just be mindful of who you are comparing yourself to and if it's even fair.
yeah. Exactly. I like that, and I also think comparison, it serves a purpose, just like anything. It has a shadow side and it has the up or purposeful side, and it's showing us what we value. It's
Yeah.
no different than jealousy, right, or envy. It's showing us what we value and what we want. So comparison's like, oh, right, like that's why I got a nipple piercing when I was 15. I saw this really hot guy at the swimming pool, and I was like, that looks really hot, and I was super turned on by it. I'm like, I'm going to get a nipple piercing. Right? It's like
Yeah.
I compared myself, and it brought me closer to something that I value and desire to be, right?
Yeah. Great point. I'll get more on that later as well.
Cool.
Okay, so let me answer the question. I mean, it's not too far
Yeah.
from what you said. For me, it's not so much about like body lifestyle. It used to be. Now it's very similar to you. Like it's more of in a professional sense. So I still do that. Oddly enough, it's not so much like the people who have maybe more significance. I mean, I still notice that, but it doesn't have the same effect on me because I know now that being in business for so long, a big following means very little, and I know
Okay.
that. But what I will say is, I will compare myself for social media, specifically in a business sense, when I see other gay coaches or queer who are in the same field, in the same space, kind of in the same lane as me,
Yeah.
and I see their specific social media success. So guys who are just getting into it now, like just like in the last little bit, so they have less time and they're air quote further ahead with respect to again their following, and
Yeah.
they're like creating, they have hundreds of thousands of followers and they have a super engaged audience, and they have
Yeah.
these fun reels every day that are super polished and fun with all these funky transitions and edits and
Yeah.
tricks. And I'm like, I don't know how the fuck to do that. I just pop on my Zoom and talk to the camera and call it a day, right?
Yeah.
So that for me, it's not so much people who have more, it's actually the ones who are coming up behind, so
Yeah.
to speak, if we're going to look at it that way. And they're like, I get the sense of, oh my gosh, they're coming for me, like that's it, like this, I'm going to be overshadowed. That's what it
Yeah.
is for me.
Yeah. So what are they going to take from you if they're coming from behind? It's like a race or whatever. What are they going to take from you?
Yeah, it's that scarcity mindset. It's, as you said, it's the ego. It's the pie is limited. It comes from the pie is limited, and they're going to take my pie, aka
Yeah,
clients, income, ideas. That's a big
yeah,
one. Oh, that's a good idea. I had that idea.
yeah,
But there's obviously intellectually, I know there's no limit to these things, but the
yeah,
ego self in that, again, in that automatic moment, is not thinking logically, it's thinking very emotionally.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that because I kind of had that a little bit with you and Callan when we first started the Brotherhood because I wasn't like my practice wasn't full and like these sorts of things. And so I had this notion of like at the beginning it was like there's not enough pie. Like, like so there was this like gatekeeping energy or there's this scarcity mindset. It's a good way to put it. And then something softened in me because I started to notice that my people were just there, like they were there. Like I work on magnetics and energetics and people find me because I put out a certain frequency and people come to that frequency.
Yeah.
So no one has my frequency. It's
Yeah.
just you, it's unique to me. So it's the same for you, right? So no matter how fast people are coming from behind, they can't take the people that are meant to work with you.
Yeah.
Those people are destined to work with you,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah,
That thought for me comes after. The automatic one is like panic.
yeah,
That's the automatic thought. But then
yeah,
that's the important thing about looking at them, right? That's why I love the idea of like using this compare and despair to like lift the hood, as I said. What's the thought there? And then kind of do what Matt just did and say, okay, well, let's actually look at this, which I'll take you through my example in the next section. But I notice with me, it's I compare myself very harshly on the things that I don't perceive I have. So
mm,
it's not, notice how it wasn't about like the clients, because I have lots of those. It's not about anything else. It's about my like social media skills. Like, oh,
yeah,
they're so polished and cool. And reels or like, TikToks are the thing these days. And I just
yeah,
don't have that. I don't have that skill set. So because I see it as an area that I'm lacking in, that's where I'm more susceptible to the compare and despair.
yeah, yeah,
Now,
yeah. Good point.
for the audience, I want you guys to think about that as well. What is the area that you might be insecure about? And likely it's going to get triggered when you're comparing and despairing, right?
Yeah.
So if you're insecure about your body, you're likely going to have a lot of stories about people's gym selfies and all these things. If you're insecure about being single, you're likely going to have a lot of compare and despair about seeing couples on Instagram being all in love.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And I think what happens in that instance is we put all of our eggs in that basket,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if it's like if we feel insecure about this certain thing, that we put a lot of value on it not having that or other people having it and we don't,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's really important to like, and I guess I'll just share it now because I had it for the next point is just to diversify the portfolio, the value portfolio, right? Like it's like if you're so fixated on your body or your dick size or something like that, like can you sit down and come up with things that you value about yourself other than that, right? And I know that's hard to do because the insecurity, it feels so big and it takes over, but like I just think gay men put so much emphasis and value on body
Yeah.
that it's like personality, energetics, like what's that? You know what I mean? It's like I have to look this certain way, otherwise I'm not going to get acceptance and approval. And in certain circles, yeah, that's very true. But do you want to run with those circles then, or do you want to run with circles where they can value other things as well? Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like you were saying. It's the same concept of what you're saying with business. Like your people are there. You don't have to. You just need to be you, and they will find you. Same thing
Yeah.
in the realm of dating or body. Like you just have to be you, and not worry so much people who are never gonna like you anyway. No matter
Yes.
how much you try, they're not gonna want you. Focus on being you and attract the people that are. Yeah.
Yeah. Scarcity mindset.
Yes,
We got to write that down for another podcast idea.
I'm gonna write that down right
Okay.
now. Yeah. So when I am looking at, if we lifted the hood on my brain, when I'm kind of scrolling through these other coach accounts, here's what I wrote down. They're smarter than me. They're better at this than me. They're having more success than me. They're more accomplished than me. My favorite one. I'm an idiot. I'm a
Oh.
dinosaur. I'm gonna get pushed aside by someone hipper and prettier. Oh yeah, that's it. They're always so fucking pretty. These are the prettiest boys who do these things,
Mm.
and no one cares what I have to say. I'm irrelevant. So this
Yeah.
is all very very harsh. And if this sounds like you, I want you guys to put a pin in the next episode because we're gonna also be talking about this more in the next episode. But yeah,
Yeah.
as you can see, like it brings up a lot of my inner critic, and like if you look at these, like as I read them out loud, I'm kind of embarrassed to share them, but also I want you guys to see like you're not alone, and it can be very important to do the work of like actually looking at what is under the hood there. And then once you see it, you can almost laugh at it a bit like, oh, this is ridiculous. As I'm reading it aloud to you, I'm like, this sounds ridiculous. And I know it's not true.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I want to do the same thing as what you just did because I
Sure.
think that was really powerful. Like, and I'm going to look at mine. So I'm not working hard enough is one. Other men's bodies. Um, yeah, like I'm not um, muscular enough. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing. I'm not muscular enough. Um, I'm not powerful enough. That's kind of a big one. I'm not significant enough. Um, yeah, I'm not doing enough. It's all again, it's all this enoughness. What
Enough.
the
Yeah.
fuck? It's enoughness. Tired of not feeling enough.
Yeah. It's our shame. And at the end of the day, that's the thing. If we took the route all the way down, we'd find shame, which is what we talk
Yeah,
about here. Yeah.
totally. Totally. Hmm.
Okay, guys. So if you're enjoying the conversation we're having here, I want to invite you to continue the discussion on the last Thursday of every month in the Gay Men's Brotherhood sharing circles. This is where you guys have a chance to share your own experiences on the topics that we discuss here, including this one. Um, we also have our connection circles, which happen on the second Thursday of the month, which are similar, but they're smaller and they're more intimate breakout rooms where we put you in rooms of three. And again, you discuss the topics that we have on the podcast here with other members of the community. So if you like what we're talking about here and you want to continue the conversation with other people who also listen to this podcast and are excited about this, please go to www.gaymensbrotherhood.com and check out our events section to RSVP. Now, the group is in Facebook, but don't worry. If you don't have Facebook, that's okay. You can get on our email list and we will email you the Zoom link for all of the events. Okay, let's get on to our next question. This is an important one. So we've talked a lot about the problem. Let's talk about what the solution is here. So the question is, how have you developed resilience to the pattern of compare and despair?
Hmm. Do you want me to go first or do you want to share?
Uh, yeah, you go first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing that I wrote down was differentiation from thoughts.
Okay.
If you can't differentiate from thoughts, you're going to be stuck in compare and despair for the rest of your life. There has to be some sort of stick in spoke, flip over your handlebars, come down into the body, right? I just think like when we're habituated in thought, we're in a cycle. We can't get out of it, right? So we need to take refuge. So that's the present moment. Come down into the body. And I think for me, my ego is a structure, personality structure of the mind, and my soul is like the energy that inhabits my whole being, right? And it like resides in my heart center. So when I connect into my heart center, like I'm not in compare and despair. So I think that's a really important part. So that could look like embodiment practices, doing yoga, just even holding your hands on your heart. Anything that pulls you into the present moment and allows you to connect with your kind of like the most truest aspect of your nature. Like the body, the soul, it doesn't have an ego structure. It can't compare itself to anything, right? So I think we got to get out of mind. Um, and then I think, developing a mindful relationship with the emotion of inadequacy. So like name it and claim it is what I
Yeah.
say. Like you just got to like say like I'm feeling inadequate right now. I just compared and despaired. I'm going to be with my inadequacy. I'm going to be with my shame, whatever is there. And again, that's an embodied experience. Being with an emotion is an embodied experience. We have to be with it. We have to feel it. We have to breathe into it. Um, if you're ruminating about what you're feeling, you're not in feeling, right? You're thinking your feelings, which then they can't actually get out of the loop. You'll just keep looping in rumination. um yeah, okay. And then I just wrote here, like, get clear about what I value and come up with a plan to attain it. Right. So if you're comparing yourself because they think that they're better, right? There's a beingness and a doingness to this answer, right? Because the beingness is like, come home, remind yourself that you're good just as you are, right? But then there's also like, I compare myself sometimes because I want to motivate myself. I want to have that membership where I'm making $1 million a month or some, like, so comparison can be useful and it can put me into a state of action. But if I'm overdoing, I got to learn the beingness, I think. And that's what I've been doing for the last few years, is learning how to be and learning how to like co-create with this
Yeah.
beautiful universal energy that we're always working with, right? And I think that's been a big piece of my learning, is like I don't got to do it all, and I've been doing less and I've been getting more. That's what I've been learning from, the magnetics and working with universal energy. Remind myself that I'm on my own path, and what is meant for me will come for me. Right? Like that's just the biggest thing. Like surrender to that, because I believe in destiny, and I believe that there's things that are carved out for me in this life, and they're going to come regardless of whether I'm comparing or whatever. I'm kind of walking my dharma, and with that comes all the beautiful things that I'm going to be meeting along the way. And then this is a big one, and I think because social media is where I do a lot of my comparing as well. So comparing my behind the scenes with others' highlight reels. We've said this on previous
Yeah.
episodes. So that is such an unfair thing to do to ourselves,
Yeah.
right? And it's like the perfect example is you comparing yourself to me. And like, lo and behold, at that time, I was struggling financially and my business was crumbling because I was transitioning from fitness into back into counseling. So I had lost all my clients. I had to go back from Asia back to Canada, and like, so like there was some seriously dark shit happening in my life at the time. And then here you are comparing yourself to some numbers that I have on my social media that don't translate into monetary or success, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and then just reminding myself that everyone has a behind the scenes, and people are never as they appear. And the beauty of you and I getting to do this work is like I have some very successful clients, like doctors and psychologists and lawyers and these sorts of things. And I get to see their behind the scenes, and I get to see their highlight reels, and we're all messy as fuck, and we're all humans, right? So comparing yourself to people is a very, well, what does Brene Brown says? Comparison is the thief of joy,
Yeah.
right? It sucks us of our joy when we don't even really know what we're comparing ourselves to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I would say when you're doing it unconsciously or like
Yeah,
automatically. Yeah. Like not
yeah,
not doing it mindfully and understanding that's happening. Yeah. I love that.
exactly.
What a great example, Matt, of the highlight reel. Like I think we just shared with everyone a very real life example of me. My story was, oh, this guy's got it all. He's got it all figured out.
Yeah,
I'm new here. I'm an idiot. What am I doing? Who
yeah,
am I? Who am I to be thinking that I can just be like this Matt guy? And
yeah,
here we are, right? It's amazing.
yeah. It is amazing. Yeah. And then I just put this last thing I think I already said, but diversify my value portfolio, and don't just focus on things that I think make me valuable. Like, and a cool thing that you can do is just ask people. Like, it's kind of like the whole attraction thing, right? It's like we project into the world that everyone else is attracted to what we're attracted to. But sometimes I'm like, I can't believe this person is attracted to this type of person. I would not think they'd be attracted to that. Like you get the bears and the twinks and all these things. Everyone has their own thing, right? So it's like I'll always ask people like, what do you value in the
Yeah,
world? Like what gets you going, or what do you value about me? And it's so amazing what people will say. They won't say the things that I hold on to, that I'm like, oh my God, these are my things, and these are the only things that are my currency in this world. No, like people are constantly reflecting to the things that they see and that they're energetically drawn to. So like diversifying that portfolio is just, it's so helpful. Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write that down. I think it's your share is a great segue. Are you done?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, your share is a great segue to what I wanted to do, and I love that this one we actually did a bit differently because I took a very like mindful, thought heavy approach to it.
Yeah.
My process, and
Yeah.
for those of you who like a good process, get out your pen and paper because I'm going to take you through mine. Okay.
Sweet.
All right. So, just to recap, the example that I had used was comparing myself to other coaches in the same space who have huge followings, who are younger, prettier, posting regularly. They got these super cool reels with all the fun polish edits, and they're showing up in the world in their business the way I think I should be. Okay, that's my compare and despair. So, how do I deal with it? 3 steps. One, separate out the person from the accomplishment. So there's
Mm.
the person, and then there's what they're doing in the world. And for me, it really helps to separate those two things out. So maybe this person is doing better in some ways, but he is not a better person than me, right? We are equally, like Matt had said. That's why it's such a good segue. On the human level, on the soul level, we're equal completely. And there's nothing either of us can do to change that. We're equally worthy. We're equally lovable. We're equally deserving. We both have strengths. Maybe they're different strengths, but we both have them. And we both have weaknesses. Maybe they're different weaknesses, but we both have them. Surely we both have fears. I know enough to know that everyone has fear and everyone has insecurity. Again, they might be a little bit different. But at the end of the day, as humans, we are completely equal and there's nothing we can do about it. So that has to be step one. It's the foundation. So now that we're equal people, the question is, am I comparing myself in a way to something that I actually really want? Okay. So if I don't want that thing, then I change my must be nice to good for you. Good for you. You want this thing, you got this thing, good for you. Has nothing to do with me. I can go about living my life, moving along. Okay. If it's something that I don't truly genuinely want, or as Matt had said, value, right? It's kind of the same thing here. Like, do I value this truly? If not, then move along. Just say good for you. And that's that. Now, if it is, then there's step three. Actually, I want to give you guys a quick story. This happened with a client of mine this week, and I think a lot of people can resonate. So he was comparing himself on Instagram with guys who have six packs. He kept talking about six, and this guy's six pack and six pack. And I was like, listen, do you want a six pack? Like, he's like, no. I was like, are you attracted to guys with six packs? He's like, no. But he had sold himself the story that a six pack is what makes people lovable. And so we got to in our coaching. We kind of rooted it down. I'm like, why are you so obsessed with six packs? And his story was unconscious, of course. Six packs is what makes people lovable. And he wanted connection. And he thought the six pack was his way to a connection. Now, obviously, once we saw it, once I showed him this, once we uncovered it, he's like, this is ridiculous. And we had a good laugh. We both had a good laugh at how ridiculous it was. But, and in that case, that's what we worked on. We worked on replacing it with good for him. And that's what he's working on now when he sees a six pack on Instagram. First of all, unfollow the account if it's not doing anything for you. That's the easiest thing. But if it's someone you know or whatever, then you want to keep following them, then just replace that with good for you. Okay. Now, what if it is something you want? What if it's not just a six pack? What if it is something that you truly, truly want? That's when you look at the actions. This is step three. Step three is you take the person out of the equation, like we did in step one, and you just look at the action. So the question is, what is he doing differently that I am not? Make it about the action, not about the person. Not he's better than me or he's smarter than me and I'm an idiot and I'm a dinosaur, like I had said in the earlier section. It's more so, okay, we're both equally smart, deserving, amazing people. Yes, cool. And notice how I don't have to tear him down either, right? I'm not tearing him down. He's awesome. He's doing a great job. I'm also awesome and I'm doing a great job. But hey, he's got this, like 100,000 followers. If that's something I truly want, what is he doing differently, right? And when I ask that question, I can actually get solutions. So he's being super intentional and organized about creating content. You can just tell he's very organized. He knows what he's talking about. He takes his social media very seriously and it shows. Do I do that? No. Right? Like the honest truth is no, I don't. I kind of post willy-nilly when I want, and that's that. Also, he's hired a social media team to help him, right? So all those polished edits maybe aren't even coming from him. Maybe he's got a team working for him, right? So then the question is, am I willing to do these things to get the results that he has that I want? And then, like, notice how we're taking all of everyone's personality and worthiness out of the equation. We're just talking facts here. Here's what he did. Here's the result he got. Am I willing to do that? Am I willing to spend that money? The answer is no. Maybe yes. Maybe one day it'll be yes. But the answer for now is no, I'm actually not. I'm doing good the way I am. So again, then it becomes a good for him, right? And then I've kind of taken that whole thing, wrapped it up in a bow, and ended up with good for him. And I didn't have to tear him down or tear me down. That's what I love about this process is no one needs to tear each other down. Everyone's equally lovable and worthy and wonderful.
Yeah. I love that. It's retention of pie. Everybody gets pie. It's abundance mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to take myself through. I mean, you guys who listen to this podcast know me. I'm very heady and I'm very process driven. So that's how I do it. Like I kind of go through step by step like that in my own brain to like rewire it. And that doesn't work for everyone. That's fine. But if you do like processes, then this podcast is great for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. You always offer really good analogies, metaphors, and you give good processes. I love that.
Thank you, Matt. Now don't go comparing yourself now.
Yeah, exactly. You said something that made me think, and I said it too. So significance. Significance is actually one of the top 6 personality needs. The other ones are like growth, certainty, uncertainty, love and connection. Um, there's one more. Can't remember, but it's important to note these because when we talk about what we value, like you said, your client values a six pack. That's kind of like the foliage,
Mm-hmm.
but the root is that he's valuing his personality need is that he's valuing connection,
Yeah.
right? Love and connection. So I
Yeah.
think it's important to kind of go back, look at the foliage. Why do I value these things? Like, and even I could even take it one step further. Like, what does significance give me? Right? Like when I feel significant in the world, what does it give me? Like, you know, maybe growth, hits on another personality, maybe love and connection. I feel like if I'm really successful, I'm going to have more love and connection in my life. So really honing in on these, I think, are really, really important. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this episode has been, I mean, it's been very valuable for me even to see in your brain, Matt, like what
Yeah.
goes on in there. And I think what I'm hoping is that people listening see us and, it's been 200 plus episodes now.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think maybe comparing themselves to us, thinking we have it all
Yeah.
together. And
Yeah.
I'm hoping what we've all showed you is that we do not
Yeah.
very clearly.
Exactly.
I lifted the hood in my brain and there's some ugly stuff in there, right? So
Yeah.
don't worry if you've got those thoughts. We all do.
Totally. Totally. The sixth personality need is contribution.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah. I can see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. This was a good episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice to flow with you. It's nice to play ping pong with you. I always love it. You and your cherry shirt.
Ah, thank you. Is it cherry or is it oranges or is it peaches? I'll let you guys decide.
Oh yeah.
You guys
I
can,
like cherry, so I'm gonna go with cherries, but
y'all can vote and let me know in the comments.
yeah.
What is it?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, that wraps up our episode for today. Please stay tuned for next week where we'll be talking about the inner critic, which goes, as I said, hand in hand with this. So if you like this, you'll love the inner critic one next week. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you tap on the bell so you get notified every time that we have a new episode. And before we wrap up, I want to let you guys know about a special workshop that I'm running with Michael Pizzullo. He has been a guest on our podcast. We did the episode about sexual abuse together. We're doing a workshop called Taming the Inner Critic and Quitting the Cycle of Compare and Despair, which fits very perfectly with this. Michael, for those of you who don't know, is a therapist in West Hollywood, California. He works very much with gay men, as do I. And we got to talking after our episode, and we just kind of realized, hey, we need to, like, this is an issue that we see a lot of, so we're going to do something about it. So we don't have all the details yet, but if you're interested in coming to this, I'll put a link in the show notes, and you can just put your email in there, and then we'll let you know once we have everything figured out, because we're still in the process of creating it.
Cool. Sounds
And
interesting.
yeah, it'll be great. I'm really looking forward to it. And for those of you who want to let us know what your thoughts are on this episode, please do let us know in the comments. Comment on YouTube. Take a moment to pause and reflect about what we shared here. I know we did a lot, so maybe take a moment, reflect on it a bit, and then check in and let us know what your thoughts on the episode are. Maybe if you're feeling brave, let us know who you compare yourself to and on what topics. All right. Thank you, Matt, for joining me today. Thank you to our viewers and listeners for sticking along for the ride with us. And remind you guys, this podcast and YouTube channel are listener and viewer supported. So if you enjoy what we're creating, you can support us by making a donation to the show using the link in the show notes. You can also subscribe to get access to early episodes on Apple Podcasts, and you can listen ad-free and get episodes about 3 weeks before they're released publicly. All of your support helps us to continue making content for you and supporting our community. So we thank you very much in advance. And we'll see you guys at the next Gay Men's Brotherhood events, the Connection Circles and Sharing Circles. Don't forget to check out our website, gaymensbrotherhood.com. Bye.